Hello again, and welcome back to year 3 of the Religious Education Initiative. This is week 47. We're going to change tack fairly significantly. Last time we read about the anointing of David to be king of Israel after Saul's sin and disobedience, as God himself chose a king for his people, looking at the heart and not merely the outward appearance. Samuel was surprised, David's father Jesse and all his other brothers were surprised, and no doubt David himself was surprised. We will see what comes next for David and for Saul and for the people of God, but it will have to wait several months, as we are going to conclude our time this year with the early monarchy. We're going to be finished with the early monarchy in Israel for now. We're going to pick up the story next year, but for now we're going to wrap up year 3 of the Religious Education Initiative with the story of Esther, from a time long after David's reign, and indeed after the abolition of his descendants' reign in the Babylonian captivity. This story comes from the years following the defeat of the Neo-Babylonian Empire by the Empire of the Medes and Persians, and in this, as with the book of Tobit in year 1, we will see God's people as they struggle to remain faithful to him while living among the Gentiles, among the nations of the earth. So, this is the beginning of the book of Esther. This happened in the days of Ahasuerus, the same Ahasuerus who ruled over 127 provinces from India to Ethiopia. In those days, when King Ahasuerus sat on his royal throne in the citadel of Susa, in the 3rd year of his reign, he gave a banquet for all his officials and ministers. The army of Persia and Media and the nobles and governors of the provinces were present, while he displayed the great wealth of his kingdom and the pomp and splendor of his majesty for many days, 180 days in all. When these days were completed, the king gave for all the people present in the citadel of Susa, both great and small, a banquet lasting for 7 days, in the court of the garden of the king's palace. There were white cotton curtains and blue hangings tied with cords of fine linen and purple to silver rings and marble pillars. There were couches of gold and silver on a mosaic pavement of porphyry, marble, mother of pearl, and colored stones. Drinks were served in golden goblets, goblets of different kinds, and the royal wine was lavished according to the bounty of the king. Drinking was by flagons without restraint, for the king had given orders to all the officials of his palace to do as each one desired. Furthermore, Queen Vashti gave a banquet for the women in the palace of King Ahasuerus. On the 7th day, when the king was merry with wine, he commanded Mehuman, Biztha, Harbona, Bigtha, and Abagtha, Zethar, and Karkas, the 7 eunuchs who attended him, to bring Queen Vashti before the king, wearing the royal crown, in order to show the peoples and the officials her beauty, for she was fair to behold. But Queen Vashti refused to come at the king's command conveyed by the eunuchs. At this the king was enraged, and his anger burned within him. Then the king consulted the sages who knew the laws, for this was the king's procedure toward all who were versed in law and custom. And those next to him were Karshena, Shethar, Admatha, Tarshish, Meres, Marsena, and Memucan, the 7 officials of Persia and Media who had access to the king and sat first in the kingdom. According to the law, what is to be done to Queen Vashti because she has not performed the command of King Ahasuerus conveyed by the eunuchs? Then Memucan said in the presence of the king and the officials, "Not only has Queen Vashti done wrong to the king, but also to all the officials and all the peoples who are in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus. For this deed of the queen will be made known to all women, causing them to look with contempt on their husbands, since they will say, 'King Ahasuerus commanded Queen Vashti to be brought before him, and she did not come.' This very day the noble ladies of Persia and Media who have heard of the queen's behavior will rebel against the king's officials, and there will be no end of contempt and wrath. If it pleases the king, let a royal order go out from him, and let it be written among the laws of the Persians and the Medes, so that it may not be altered, that Vashti is never again to come before King Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal position to another who is better than she. So when the decree made by the king is proclaimed throughout all his kingdom, vast as it is, All women will give honor to their husbands, high and low alike. This advice pleased the king and the officials, and the king did as Memucan proposed. He sent letters to all the royal provinces, to every province in its own script, and to every people in its own language, declaring that every man should be master in his own house. After these things, when the anger of King Ahasuerus had abated, he remembered Vashti, and what she had done, and what had been decreed against her. Then the king's servants who attended him said, Let beautiful young virgins be sought out for the king, and let the king appoint commissioners in all the provinces of his kingdom to gather all the beautiful young virgins to the harem in the citadel of Susa, under custody of Hegai, the king's eunuch, who is in charge of the women. Let their cosmetic treatments be given them, and let the girl who pleases the king be queen instead of Vashti. This pleased the king, and he did so. Now, there was a Jew in the citadel of Susa, whose name was Mordecai, son of Jair, son of Shimei, son of Kish, a Benjaminite. Kish had been carried away from Jerusalem among the captives carried away with King Jeconiah of Judah, whom King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon had carried away. Mordecai had brought up Hadassah, that is, Esther, his cousin, for she had neither father nor mother. The girl was fair and beautiful, and when her father and her mother died, Mordecai adopted her as his own daughter. So when the king's order and his edict were proclaimed, and when many young women were gathered in the citadel of Susa in custody of Hegai, Esther also was taken into the king's palace, and put in custody of Hegai, who had charge of the women. The girl pleased him and won his favor, and he quickly provided her with her cosmetic treatments and her portion of food, and with 7 chosen maids from the king's palace, and advanced her and her maids to the best place in the harem. Esther did not reveal her people or kindred, for Mordecai had charged her not to tell. Every day Mordecai would walk around in front of the court of the harem to learn how Esther was and how she fared. The turn came for each girl to go in to King Ahasuerus after being 12 months under the regulations for the women, since this was the regular period of their cosmetic treatment, 6 months with oil of myrrh and 6 months with perfumes and cosmetics for women. When the girl went in to the king, she was given whatever she asked for to take with her from the harem to the king's palace. In the evening she went in. Then in the morning she came back to the second harem in custody of Shashgaz, the king's eunuch, who was in charge of the concubines. She did not go in to the king again, unless the king delighted in her, and she was summoned by name. When the turn came for Esther, daughter of Abihail, the uncle of Mordecai, who had adopted her as his own daughter, to go in to the king, she asked for nothing except what Hegai, the king's eunuch, who had charge of the women, advised. Now Esther was admired by all who saw her. When Esther was taken to King Ahasuerus in his royal palace in the 10th month, which is the month of Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign, the king loved Esther more than all the other women. Of all the virgins she won his favor and devotion, so that he set the royal crown on her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. Then the king gave a great banquet to all his officials and ministers, Esther's banquet. He also granted a holiday to the provinces, and gave gifts with royal liberality. So first of all, this is obviously a very different sort of story than we've seen before. This is in the aftermath of the utter defeat and humiliation of the kingdoms, the kingdoms both of Israel and of Judah. This is in the aftermath of all of them being either killed or brought into captivity. And while on the one hand, many of the people of God, the tribes of Judah and Benjamin, had returned to Jerusalem when they were given permission by King Cyrus, one of the predecessors of this king Ahasuerus, or as we know him better in history, King Xerxes, the one who tried to invade Greece, actually. Anyway, although many of the Jews had gone back, we see that many had stayed, both in the capital of Susa and, as we will see, throughout the empire of the Medes and the Persians. The second thing is just the type of story this is. This reads like well, it presents this story of the events in the court of the Medes and Persians in a very, matter of fact way, but there's apparent admiration. It feels like the archives of the kingdom, and then all of a sudden we come upon Mordecai and Hadassah, more often called Esther, Jews, Benjaminites living in exile here in the kingdom, and it becomes a different sort of story. Viewed externally, this looks like, local girl makes good. She's pretty, she goes off to the king's beauty pageant, she's pampered for 12 months, and then she goes in and has her turn to gain the king's favor, and she wins, and we should all celebrate. And yet, there is the reality that we know that this is not something that she is doing of her own free will. She is functioning as a slave. The king is treating the entire civilization that he rules as his personal property. And Hadassah, who had been raised piously and faithfully, we are given to understand here and later, instead finds herself the queen of a pagan country, having been tried out for this role in a manner that humiliates her dignity and her purity and her chastity. This is not a pleasant story for her, although what we see depicted of her is that she comports herself with dignity, with respect, and her character is not being demeaned here, but nonetheless, this is not a romance. She's being treated as property in a culture that is determined to treat women as the property, or at least required to obey by their husbands. And we need to keep that ugliness, that brokenness, that troubled reality of this empire of the Medes and Persians, and especially of the royal court, very much in mind as we continue through. These are not good people. They are misled. They are in thrall to the demon gods of the Medes and Persians. But we see this thread of faithfulness and obedience to God running through it, and the point of this story is to see what happens with this. So that's it for day 1. I'll see you all for day 2 shortly. God bless you.